Okay, people, I did it. I watched Daku Maharaj, and after Lavyapa, this is another movie that has slapped me on the wrist because I was so ready to roast it, but instead I've been humbled once again. Because hear me out, the movie is not all that bad. Grab your chai because we are getting down to discuss what makes this movie a surprisingly entertaining watch and which parts of it will make you feel like you are a sonar detector for typical South Indian masala movie eye roll content because you smelled all that coming from miles ahead. First things first, let's give credit where it's due. Urvashi Rautela is a marketing genius. Intentional or not, I don't know. It's only because of her viral interview videos that not just I, but anyone in the non Telugu, non South Indian regions discovered an interest for Balaya's Daku Maharaj.
My mother इन्होंने मुझे गिफ्ट की डायमंड स्टडीड रोलेक्स.
Can you imagine coming across a movie with an outdated name and even more outdated actor popping up on Netflix and you not thinking, oh god, are such movies still made? Expecting you to go and watch it in the theater would be a stretch, I know. Daku Maharaj is the story of a Daku who goes undercover as a driver to protect a little girl who has recently become the target of local goons who are involved in animal poaching, illegal drug manufacture, and more recently, the murder of the little girl's pet dog, who, if you ask me, was terribly pesky. The little girl is the granddaughter of a prominent gentleman, the chairman of a school, if I'm not mistaken. He lodges a police complaint against the criminal in question, whose biggest complaint in his life was that his brother doesn't love him. The brother in question is Ravi Kishan, and he's an MLA, so certified crook. Multiple attacks rain on the family, but Daku Maharaj, also known as Nanaji, goes to impossible lengths to protect the family and especially the small girl. The question is why? Why is he so invested in the little girl's safety? Man's greatest discovery after fire was cinematic flashback. So let's quickly use that to figure out why. After concealing Daku Maharaj's genesis for a little too long in the first half, in the second half, we come to know that he used to be, once upon a time, a civil servant who was determined to bring water to a dry, dusty, middle of nowhere village in Chambal. Faced with the atrocities of the three Thakur brothers, who live like kings, by the way, because the entire village is working like slaves for them, he turns to violence, hacking off enemies' heads with his little axe thing, and now the village considers him their savior and king. The drug operations that is taking place in the tea estate in Andhra Pradesh, where the first half of the movie is set, is also owned by these three Thakur brothers. And that is the connection you're looking for. Or is it? What stood out to me, apart from the very fast pace of the movie, which did not let a moment drag, was that how beautifully it managed to keep the surprise element a complete surprise. You think you have figured it all out, who is who, what is the secret connection, till toward the end of the movie, the entire thing flips. And the Daku man is shown in a different light once again. So, good job. The next aspect worth noticing is how beautifully the movie is shot, the stunning sets as well as the choice of location. The beauty of the lush tea gardens deserved wide shots, and it was given those. And then the same technique was used to bring out the dead, dry, sandy landscape of the village in the flashback. The marble quarry shots were also captivating, and now I want to go and see a marble quarry. Unless all that weird criminal shit is going on, then I don't want to go. Daku Maharaj gets many slow-mo intros, but the thing is, all of them look good. Some are elevated by this flying sash of black cloth covering his face, and then there are shots which has the Ghost Rider type car on fire. Another frame that looked great on a large screen was the one with the sandstorm, which was actually a dust cloud announcing the arrival of Daku Maharaj and his army, who had come to rescue his wife from one of the Thakurs. The plot is convincing, though not in all parts. The story manages to convince you of how a band of bandits came to be, why they consider Balaya their Maharaj, and why Bobby Deol is out for his blood. Yes, it is a familiar anti hero story, but you can see the effort put into presenting the Daku lore from a fresh perspective. The next thing that I liked was that there was gore in the movie, but it was not the type that would make your skin crawl. Daku sir hacks off his enemies' heads at least twice in the movie, but the execution is more stylized than stomach churning, never quite indulging your gorehound's appetite for blood and brutality. I watched the movie while having dinner and I hate gore. Shraddha Srinath's character was quite impactful, though she didn't have a lot of time on screen. And I really liked how it tied back to the first half of the story. The fact that the movie did not show Urvashi as Balaya's love interest also worked for me because that would be really uncomfortable to watch. She was just a regular SI with a grandpa kink, not judging. Nandamuri Balakrishna's acting. I need to see Balaya's other movies to believe he can act at all. It's an all different story that he's too old for this, but why doesn't his face move? Why are his eyes so dead in every scene? He absolutely doesn't have the intimidating aura of a cold-blooded killer, leave alone someone who's done masters in murder. That is a line from the movie. I did masters in murders. Urvashi did a better job in acting than him. I'm not kidding. She had more expressions, but sadly, I don't think she's the first youngest Indian actress to do so. The plot, as I said, was good in some parts. The rest of the parts had so many loose threads. Like, why did the protagonist leave behind his whole career to become a Daku and avenge a village? He changed the course of his life in a fit of anger. And there wasn't even a personal loss involved, to justify such a big decision. Then there is a special task force personnel on his tail, and you think that he has some bigger role to play. His involvement would sort of add another layer of conflict to the story. But no, he just disappears after the climax. Same goes for the Daku gang members who get a comic book style intro, with the sketched out headshot and their name. But none of them even get a proper full line to speak, except Makrand Deshpande. And dude, where does Urvashi disappear after that one house break scene? I was missing her. In fact, there were quite a few actors in the cast who could have done a lot more if they weren't held back by the script and maybe even the editing. Ravi Kishan, Sachin Khedkar, Shine or Shiny, Tom Chako, and even Bobby Deol was not utilized to their full potential. Finally, what I would say didn't work for the movie was that there was no real tension. The hero is your typical superhuman specimen who can single handedly beat up a crowd, pull unbelievable stunts, and survive bullets and knife attacks combined. You know no one can get to him, and every fight is tilted in his favor. Listen, he's too old. He should die of a heart attack before a weapon can even get to him. Daku Maharaj is a masala dosa movie and it has many familiar flavors. The hero, the story, and it still manages to surprise you. It also keeps you engaged if you can tolerate Balaya's bad acting and the standard sprinkling of exaggerations. Not a boring watch if you have the appetite for the genre. Have you seen the WD song? Like, have you seen the translation? What is going on?